Have you ever wondered why productivity, discipline, consistency comes easy to some people, but not to you? Well, you're in the right place. In this video today, I'm going to talk about why that is and how astrology helps us understand why we're not as productive as we'd like to think we want to be, right? So if that's of interest, do stick around. Hi, my name is Maya. I am your astrology crone, and on this channel I share, as per this video, like I share life learned wisdom, like life advice based on astrology. So as I'm recording, well, as this video goes out, Mars will be opposite Saturn. Mars in Virgo will be opposite Saturn in Pisces. And so today, or in the last week, and for the next maybe couple of days, but certainly up to a few days in the run-up to today, when this is published, you may have noticed that your productivity has been heightened, like you're more productive, basically, right? And that will be because of the transit. What you might want to also look at in your own chart is where you have Virgo and Pisces, and then look at what the productivity has been about, and you will find possibly that it's on that axis. So in my case, it's 5th and 11th house. So I'm recording a month earlier, so I'm not there today, but I imagine I would feel very creative because that's my 5th house of creative self-expression, or creativity in general, and fun, and so I might be having some fun projects that I'm like finally finishing or something like that, right? So wherever Virgo Pisces axis is for you, around the time that this video goes out, in the run-up to it, like a week in the run-up to it, so just check the date. So that's like the week between 13th and 20th of July 2023, basically, right? I suspect you are feeling more productive than maybe usually would. So that's why this video goes out. So productivity is, like, I think probably one of the most, what's the $1 billion industry, because we're all wanting to create a legacy, even if we don't use the language yet, because we're too young or we just don't think of it like that. But we want to leave a mark. We want to say we lived and we've been here and this is what we have created. And we've done and all that. So it's a totally natural, we all have that desire. So that's all good. The problem is where one's productivity is not someone else's. One's discipline is not someone else's. And for me, that has eventually, after decades of trying to be productive, following different ways of being, and certainly some has worked more than others, or a piece. There's always something about everyone's productivity model or method, something in there that is actually a great advice and it can work. But what I found, or what I struggled the most with, so that was easy. Like, you go somewhere, you pick someone's method and you see what works, and then it doesn't, and okay, that's problematic or difficult. But even in those times, we sometimes would push through, right, and deliver or produce. What we eventually started to feel, I think in 21st century by now, it's like what we are ultimately seeking is to not have to force ourselves, not have to do things because we should ourselves, right? What we are all seeking is the flow, is like wanting to be productive, wanting this to be more effortless venture, right? Like, as it seems to some other people. So what I have been mostly focused on, or maybe I should just call it what it is, what I've been obsessed with, is to figure out why. I mean, why discipline comes easy to someone, why consistency comes easy to someone and not to me. And that's the journey. That piece will be a book sometime in the near future, because it's just wonderfully revealing, and it's like, and calming and soothing, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm actually super productive. I'm super consistent. I am motivated, and what else is there? I'm disciplined, right? So there are 4 areas, or 4 key elements that are required for productivity to happen, for us to be productive, right? and they correspond to 4 archetypes, astrologically speaking. And as I'm gonna listen to you now, you will see straight away the problem. The problem of like why we can't follow someone else's advice. Sometimes we can do more than other times, but more often than not, and overall, really never really fully. And it's a shame because we are looking at it the wrong way. So let me list those 4 key elements to productivity: motivation, consistency, discipline, and persistency. Motivation is Mars in your chart, consistency is your 6th house, discipline is your Virgo, and persistency is Saturn. So unless you have 6th house, Virgo, where you have Mars and Saturn conjunct, in which case, if you do, please leave a comment below, because I would love to meet you, or just like say hi and then tell me how productive, tell us about your productivity. And again, see, this is the piece. Even if, you know, if there is someone like that, I have never met anyone like that. But whatever that person's productivity model would be, it would not work for me because I don't have that placement. So these 4, let me talk about each of them. Motivation, as you can imagine, is like the you know, we are all told that, you know, you need, you know, not that you need to be motivated, but it's like what keeps someone going. You know, it's like motivation, right? You're motivated to do something. And that's what I mean when I said it a minute ago, where we are now seeking, we want to feel motivated. We want to feel like we want to do something when we do it, right? Instead of pushing ourselves and forcing it and all that. So when I say to you that motivation is only your Mars, well, not only, like that's the primary signifier and pointer in your chart where your motivation lives, then you will immediately know that there is a particular area in your chart where that is. So there's just a segment. So I'll use my example, it's always the easiest. It's in the 8th house for me, and it's squaring Pluto. So aspect's always important, whether it's conjunction or square or opposition are the most important aspects. That will then determine what, you know, will add layers to what that motivation requires. What do you need to be motivated, right? So in a nutshell, for me, it's about experiences that will transform it, transformative experiences. So Mars is what will get us out of bed when we are the tiredest, right? So you know how people, motivation gurus or productivity gurus out there, will like show you how they get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and you know, they do whatever they do. And yes, you try that and for a while it works and then it just doesn't. Well, unless you have Mars in the 1st house, getting up early might not be your thing. You might struggle with that. Or Mars in the 4th house, or even Mars in the 12th house, like the sleepy houses, so that to get you out of bed, right, that early. But if like me, you have in the 8th house, then really the only thing that will get me, like I know, I can force myself easily, no problem, for a day, for a week, for a month even, but not lifetime. This is a lifetime motivation that every time there is a transformative experience, even if I will not sleep, that's how excited I would be. So that's your motivation. So that's just one part in your chart, right? The next one is 6th house, and that's where your consistency lives. So don't ever let anyone ever again tell you that you're not consistent. However, what you might not be consistent about is what they're telling you you're not consistent about. But you are consistent. You have an area in your life where you're consistent, and that's your 6th house. And so you can see how motivation and consistency can be at loggerheads here, because unless you have Mars in the 6th house, without Saturn or without it being in Virgo or in any sign, just Mars in any sign, in Leo, Libra, whatever, Aquarius in 6th house, then motivation will be tied in closely and neatly and tightly to your consistency. So there will be a layer, there will be an energy to your consistency that energizes you. There's like or that you energize your consistency with it, or there is passion, or there is drive, right? You really enjoy it. But really, if you don't have Mars in the 6th house, and then whatever else you have in the 6th house would be how you, and so what is consistency? Let me just say, and what is there for 6th house? It's how we organize our daily life, day to day. So those are routines, but they're like almost like automation routines. But we have organized it because it works for us. The the key, so it works, that model of daily, however you wake up, whatever you do first thing in the morning, whatever you do in the evening, whatever, it's because it works. Now what it works for is again your choice. This is where it gets tricky in the sense of like, so you might I'm not a mother, so I don't speak from experience, but you might be a mother of like 3 and you have a husband and I don't know what else, pets, let's say, and then you in business or something, or work at least. So you're juggling all this, and essentially you're like, it is your life and it's your choice, presumably. But I have certainly met many mothers, many of these characters that I just described, who end up feeling like they live someone else's life, because so much of what they do day in, day out is geared towards someone else. Children, work, husband, even if you share pets, blah, blah, right? And so sure, you can organize it so you don't feel like that, but yeah, so that the potential, my point there being is that what works for you works, and you're doing it, and you have no problem doing it. It's like it works, right? And even though it doesn't do you well, because there is no need for motivation in the 6th house, is what I'm saying. If you have it, great, but if you don't, you're happy to do it, even if it doesn't really deliver the end result, but it gives you that sense of flow and the structure and organization, right? So if your motivation is somewhere else, if you start to crumble on your consistency, then you need to bring in your motivation. But you can see how ultimately what I'm illustrating here is how complex productivity is, right? It's where you are consistent. So if you're consistent in that one area of your life, which is to do with family, let's say, so you have Cancer in the 4th house, in the 6th house, sorry, but your motivation is, like me, in some experiences or somewhere else, I can't think of now, let's say creativity, right? Self-expression, theater, that's where you have Mars in 5th. You see how they're not connected. So you'll have to accept that you're consistent in your family life, but you might not be consistent in your theater life, although wherever you have motivation, you can probably be consistent as well. But it's not, again, imagine like that desire to get up will always be there, but if your routine is elsewhere, it could outweigh the Mars, where, so your consistency outweighs your motivation, because it's consistency, right? You're consistent in that area of your life, because that's what 6th house is. It shows us what our day-to-day looks like. So, like I say, you can see how that can start to be conflicting, and therefore you can feel like you're not productive, but you are, just in different areas of your life. Then the third, so there are 4, right? So this is the third key to productivity, is discipline. And astrologically speaking, archetypally, discipline is Virgo. So wherever you have Virgo, you will naturally be disciplined in this. So what does discipline mean? This is wherever you struggle with understanding something, I highly recommend you check etymology. Not even understand as in like the word, but just understand what it means for you to kind of, or struggling with a concept, or even like this, like, why am I not disciplined? Look at what the word means, like etymology of it. It will just make, oh, well, that's why, let's say, right? So I'll give an example of what I mean there. But discipline means rules and control, amongst other things. It means a pupil, a student. But also like these are in fact, sorry, maybe that's incorrect. The rules and control, I don't know with don't think that's etymology. Etymology is a disciple. It's like a student, but student is being, there is a controlled environment, and there are rules. They're learning the rules, right? And they're adhering to the rules. That's how you learn something, right? And so many people, in fact, I've seen this often on social media, like, why people who are against discipline, meaning like not against, but like, the new narrative around discipline. Of course, you're not disciplined because, you don't want to, there's another one, I think, punishment or something. So all these words are not conducive to wanting to do something, like to punish, to control, to be under rules, right? So you can see why on that level, just on the level of linguistics, of meaning, you can see why you might be struggling with discipline. However, wherever you have Virgo, this is why astrology is beautiful. Wherever you have Virgo, you will be happy to be disciplined, because Virgo, and I think next week there will be, or in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a video on the Virgo Pisces, I think it's next week actually, axis. And you will understand better why Virgo loves control, or rather needs control and needs rules. But for the moment, I'm just going to say this. So Virgo loves rules, loves planning, loves to create, to control, right? Loves to create a life, loves to feel in control that is, and loves to adhere to rules. So wherever you have Virgo, just check your chart, or if you need help with your whole productivity piece, you might want to, hire me to do some life coaching using astrology around your productivity. But there'll be a link below for any new clients. If you never worked with me before, if you have, you know how to contact me and all that. So check your chart where your Virgo is, and just think about it. You might be immediate like, oh yeah, I'm very disciplined in that area of my life. Or if you need to think about it, just think about it. You'll find it. You'll find it that that's where your discipline is. That's where your discipline is, right? And the fourth piece is persistency. Now, I'll call it, I chose that word. So what I thought it was really interesting that the synonyms for discipline is not persistency and vice versa. I thought at one point it might be, because they're kind of like, in productivity terms, they're used possibly even interchangeably, or at least understood by me, kind of like, just assumed. And then like I said, questioned it, and I realized that they're not synonyms, which tells you that they're distinctly separate or different, right? And so persistency, what does it mean? It's continuing despite difficulty. Now this is Saturn. Okay, let me just, I get so excited like how much wisdom in all of this is, and I don't know if that transmission is coming to you as well, but so yeah, I need to calm down before I kind of relatively concisely and clearly explain why I'm so excited about this. So I just want to say something for all of you who are interested in astrology, which is why you're probably here as well, not just life wisdom, is to understand how it connects and how you can use astrology to help you live wisely. So you probably heard many astrologers, certainly in the past, like older generations, but I've seen it today as well nowadays, like, so it's younger generation as well. But anyway, talk about Saturn as a control and rules. I disagree. I mean, I do. I think I do. I'm just gonna say I do. I very much do. I have Saturn on my ascendant, and it rules my moon in Capricorn. So I do consider myself somewhat of a Saturn expert. But yeah, it's up to you to decide whether, I am, for you, Saturn expert or not. What I mean, Saturn is essentially an archetype that loves weight, loves form, density. That's the archetype. So when an archetype therefore loves that, it's itself, right? There's no. So why am I saying this? There's no control there. It's like, I mean, there isn't. Like, you see what I mean? I mean, this is what I mean. I'm reducing it all the way down to this one nugget, one pearl wisdom, right? Dare I say, which is that it's a matter. It's a 3D reality. It's a dense thing. It's a dense existence. It's our bodies. It's the creator principle, as in like we are Saturn. We are Saturn. Death is Saturn. There's a whole series of Saturn things coming in the near future. But there's no. I mean, yeah, there is no control. If anything, Saturn holds. That's not control. It holds. I mean, you can philosophize and kind of expand on that it's a form of control. I think that's where that's what I mean. We lose it. We are going too far away from Saturn principle. So Saturn holds, is a container to give form to something. And yes, like I say, there can be, but I wouldn't. If I were you, I wouldn't, because you're then going into the area of Virgo. So you're confusing Saturn and Virgo in my books, and there will be also those coming. Anyway, so, but what I mean, so go back to the persistency, and the fourth principle of productivity is that Saturn, which is why Saturn isn't discipline, because Saturn doesn't force, doesn't want to. Virgo forces, and we'll talk Virgo Pisces axis another time. Saturn doesn't need to force. Saturn is a heavyweight presence. It's like a Titan. I mean, I think literally. No, it's. Can't quickly think of now mythology. No, it's Chiron is Titan, is it? Maybe it's not. Anyway, ignore that. So Saturn doesn't need to control. Saturn is the thing that's already been controlled. Like I say, I'll just forget about the word control with Saturn. It's density, it's matter, it's form, and therefore anything coming up against Saturn will feel like difficulty, because it's a form. It's not water, it's not air, it's not fire that you can disperse, that you can put out. It's a form. Even if you want to break it, it's an effort. It's not easy, right? But if you are Saturn, you are the difficulty. And difficulty not qualitatively, not morally speaking, just factually. It's like I don't know the etymology of difficulty now. I wonder whether there's anything to do with weight. But you get the difficulties because of the weight. We can't move it easily. We have to push it, right? But because it's Saturn, this is the piece. Saturn is the piece. Wherever you have Saturn, pushing doesn't feel like force, doesn't feel like you're going against your will. You actually love the pushing. So remember the beginning when I said that, we are in the era and human evolution, and we're moving further into that, the future human. I talked about that in another video. Anyway, my point being is that we are ultimately striving to be productive in a way that feels right for us, that feels good for us, right? So wherever we have Saturn, the pushing will be a most gorgeous feeling in the world. Like, just look where you have Saturn. Like, to actually endure, to be persistent, to keep trying, even after you have been, so it's a form. I'm just going to stick with a practical, I don't know how to call it, practical example. So if you're working with, let's say a statue, you're creating a sculpture, right? And so, you're chiseling, that's hard, your muscle is aching, but it's like, I don't know if you experience sometimes physical pain that's actually like, I feel healthy for this physical pain, meaning muscle ache, let's say, right? Or even I feel healthy when I disinfect my wound that I cut myself, even though it hurts me, right? So that is Saturn. The difficulty is actually pleasurable, because Saturn is physical form and physical, all the physical signs, by that I mean earth signs, and the rulers of those signs, which are Saturn in this case of Capricorn, are sensual and therefore pleasurable in their different ways. Virgo is too, which is why Virgo loves control. And it's all that tightening of things that it's actually, that's why Virgo, that's what I mean, that you are disciplined in your Virgo area, because Virgo loves it. But in another area of life, you're not, right? So back to Saturn and persistency. Wherever we have Saturn, we will find that our ability to what productivity often calls discipline, and I think it's not the right word for it, because it's not about control. It's about persisting. It's about resilience is maybe another one. Let's stick with persistence. So just look at where your Saturn is, and you will find that beauty, that you actually love pushing through difficulties. So that way pushing is good, because it feels good, and it's your way of pushing. It's where you're happily pushing without feeling like you're forcing anything. And even if you do, it's pleasurable in a good way, in a consensual way between you and the thing you're pushing against, or whether that's, something, whatever that is, right? Now, to wrap this up, you can see how productivity is, without astrology, and like I say, I just really feel astrology can give so much wisdom to one's understanding of one's own productivity and one's own consistency, discipline, persistency, and motivation, and then figure out, and not just figure out, but just essentially it's like you will find that you're already doing all of this. So it gets you off the hook of feeling bad that you're not productive in, you know, in the areas that you're not meant to be productive. So not all of us, and I'm gonna drop this clanger and I'm gonna end on that like a cliffhanger. But I'll be talking about this in another Saturn series. Not all of us are meant to be business owners, to have careers, to be successful YouTubers. That might include me. I mean, I hope to be, but if I'm not meant to be, and well, I can see, I know my chart, so I know that I could be. But it's a long way around to it anyway. My point is, not all of us are meant to have that, like, or to be that, and that's fine. That's what makes this world and humanity wonderful, because we're all different. But you're meant to succeed, and the beauty is that you might think you want to succeed in one area because you've seen your next door neighbor, your best friend, or whoever you admire, or blah blah blah. This is all misguided. And in a sense, if you're finding yourself that you're struggling to get to that point, it's because you're barking up the wrong tree. I'm gonna go with that one. It's you're walking up the wrong hill, because there is a hill just made for you. And the beauty is when you find it, and I speak from first direct personal experience of this, and it's not like, oh, I keep falling off that path, and then whenever I find it back, I'm like, oh my God, I'm home. I know this is me, this is mine. And there is something so lush, so deeply satisfying, so deeply empowering when you find your track, when you come back to yourself, when you come back on that track that is yours, of productivity, of consistency, of success, of fame, of material abundance, because it's yours. It's always been yours. But you've been distracted, let's say, and that's just, particularly in today's age of like mega information everywhere, it's distractions everywhere, right? So we get off track. But to conclude and to finally wrap up, we are all productive. We are all productive just the way we are meant to be. We are producing what we are meant to be in this life, in this lifetime, right? And if you're struggling with what you would like to be productive about, it's probably because that's not your productivity. If you're struggling with consistency, so that's what I mean. These four things, the motivation, consistency, discipline, and persistency, are four key ingredients to be productive. So if you are lacking consistency, that is not connecting you to your goal or productivity, then your chart will explain to you why that is, which is like, okay, now I know. And then you can also go, aha, so my productivity, my what am I leaving, my legacy, what does it look like? And it's hardly ever going to be a linear path and one neatly wrapped up, something, a bullet point list or something. It will be a matter of building a few different, it's like building a city instead of a house. So you'll have an area for this, and then you'll have an area for that. But isn't that like, a world in a way, really? You're building a world of your own. We all are. And so that's why I have not ever met anyone with a Virgo 6th house with the Saturn and Mars conjunct there. And I was going to say, if you are that, let me know. And talk to me about your productivity. Share with us here all what it is for you. What are you productive about? And everything you can tell us about it. Thank you. But because we're all so complex and so not straightforward, and that's the beauty. And so we are all meant to be building our worlds, which will have so thank God I have motivation in one area, consistency in another, persistency in another, and what else? Discipline and there are literally for me 4 different areas. And then it gets more complex with all the layers of the aspects and all that, right? Which I'm not going into obviously today or ever. It's like, anyway. You see, and that's because I'm meant to create a world, not just one piece. And there are ways of like summing up and summarizing and packaging that world for the world, the other worlds to see it. And that's a different video. And I'll leave that with you to figure out. Maybe you can just quickly know what that is or how to do it. It's not, anyway, I'm an open throat, so I just go and what comes out sometimes like, interesting. I'll have to come back to that. I haven't got anything to say yet on this topic. So I hope you found this really helpful. Let me know anything, always. Let me know in the comments, would you like me to explore something further, elaborate, clarify, any questions, just, and everything you need to know in terms of anything I'll always leave in my description in terms of working with me, or anything I have for you else, right? It's always check my description. Okay. Have a great, productive day.